My name is Pilate, Pontius Pilate. I was the Roman procurator of the province of Judea for 10 years. In our Roman system of government, a procurator was the governor or chief administrative officer over a small region. Larger regions were governed by tetrarchs. I was a procurator of Judea when Jesus was crucified. I suppose that you want to hear what part I played in the death of your so-called Messiah. I will tell you. But at the outset, let me make it clear that I did not want to play any part in it. I considered the whole affair to be a scam, and I tried to get out of it. Just remember that. Here is a story. I had heard of Jesus before. Not much, mind you, just his name mentioned here or there. Herod Antipas, the tetrarch of Galilee, had mentioned him, for example. Herod thought that Jesus was some kind of troublemaker, although he could never exactly say why. All I could figure is that he was some kind of traveling preacher and faith healer. I was not interested in that. The Jews had a lot of religious leaders and so-called holy men. They were a dime a dozen. I had seen plenty come and go, just as long as they talked about God and not politics. I could care less. Just as long as they paid their taxes and followed the rules, I was satisfied. It was my job to keep order, collect taxes, and keep Emperor Tiberius happy. That's it. So you see, it made no difference to me if Jesus came to Jerusalem or not. When he did come, I have to admit he came with a bit of flair. Quite a few lined the path he was traveling, waving palms and shouting praises. Why, they made such a fuss. You would have thought the emperor himself was coming. My spies were alarmed. Some are calling Jesus king, they said. They believe that Jesus of Nazareth is going to lead them to freedom. He's obviously a revolutionary and insurrectionist. They were worried, but I was not. If Jesus was that dangerous, Herod would have snatched him in Galilee. Besides, the first thing he did was to go to the temple and chase out the money changers, bellowing something about his father's house and the sacred place. Oh, he was no revolutionary. He was a religious fanatic, the kind that are dangerous only to themselves and the gullible. I was not concerned in the least. He was no threat to me. I'll tell you who he threatened. The Pharisees and Sadducees and priests and scribes and temple leaders. He bothered the religious leaders. They are the ones who hated him. They are the ones who wanted to be rid of him. He made them look bad. He challenged their teaching and their ways. He preached a different message. And the people were listening to him. They liked what he had to say. No, if you want to know who Jesus' enemies were, don't look at me. Look at them, the religious leaders. They are the ones who wanted him dead. And they were determined too. All week long they pestered Jesus. They tried to publicly disgrace him. They worked to try to discredit him as a teacher or to trick him into making conspiracy statements. Should we pay taxes to Caesar or not? What do we do with this woman caught in adultery? By whose authority are you doing these things? After the resurrection, whose wife will this woman be? And on and on and on. Apparently Jesus answered them well, because they could never find fault with him. I was rather happy with the whole situation. They were so busy worrying about themselves, they didn't have time to worry about us. As near as I can piece it together, they never did manage to discredit Jesus, but they were determined to do away with him nevertheless. And so they decided to act secretly. Jesus must have suspected their plan because he would leave the city at night. He'd be there all day, right in the heart of the city, usually at the temple, preaching and healing. He knew he was safe. The temple guard would never arrest him in public. The people would not let them. But at night, under the cover of darkness, in secret, that was a different matter. So at night, Jesus would leave the city and go to a private place. I'm told that one of his own did him in. No surprise. We learned from our own Caesar that you cannot trust those even closest to you. One of his own disciples led the temple guard to his night camp, and there he was arrested. It took them no time at all to find him guilty in their court. They already knew he was guilty. The trial was a mock formality. But they had a problem. Under Roman law, executions could be carried out only by Roman authorities. And so early in the morning, they brought Jesus to me. I tried to stay out of it. Not because I was concerned about executions, mind you. No, indeed, not at all. Many a time I had sent my soldiers with clubs, wading through a crowd to dispel a mob. Many a time I had killed would-be revolutionaries right on the spot. Many a time I had executed. Why, that morning I already had 2 thieves being prepared for crucifixion. Oh, no, I was not intimidated by Golgotha in the least. But there was something about this execution that made me uneasy. I could see no reason for it, no justification. I told their judges to take care of it themselves. In essence, I winked at them, letting them know that if they killed Jesus, I would not notice. I figured it was a Jewish matter. If they wanted Jesus dead, let them do it themselves. They refused my offer. Always the legalist. They reminded me it's against the law. I told them, well, I think he is innocent. But they clamored for his death. By coincidence, Herod Antipas was in town. I thought. Herod is Tetrarch of Galilee. And Jesus is a Galilean. And Herod had expressed interest in Jesus before. He was a higher rank. I sent him to Herod, thinking that I could ingratiate myself with the Tetrarch, and that he would take care of this mess. It was the perfect plan. And Herod was glad to be able to interview Jesus, and he was grateful to me for sending him. But he refused to act, and he sent him back to me. So again, I told his accusers that I thought he was innocent, and Herod thinks so too, I said. They still insisted that I find him guilty of treason and execute him. My wife sent me a message. Have nothing to do with Jesus of Nazareth, she warned. I have had terrible dreams about him. So again I determined to simply set him free. But again they clamored for his death, insisting that I carry out my duty. I thought I will interview him privately. So I took him inside. And I asked him questions. To this point, he had said nothing. He had refused to defend himself. I gave him the chance. Listen to me. I gave this man every chance to defend himself. I pleaded with him to give me a reason to let him go. He could have denied being king of the Jews. He could have sworn loyalty to Rome. He did not. I asked him directly, "Are you the king of the Jews?" He said, "Does this question come from you, or have others told you about me?" I could just feel him trying to shift this whole matter to my shoulders. I yelled at him, "Do you think that I am a Jew? It was your own people and your chief priest who delivered you to me. What have you done?" Nothing. I asked again, "Are you then a king?" Do you know what he said to me? He said, "You say that I am a king. I was born and came into this world for one purpose, to speak about the truth. Those who belong to the truth, listen to me." The truth. What is truth? He would not help himself. So I thought, I'll help him. I took his case to the people. They had cheered when he came into town. They had waved palms and shouted praises. Surely they would support him now. We had a tradition of releasing a political prisoner to them each year. And already we had a scoundrel named Judas Barabbas locked up, and now we had Jesus of Nazareth. And so I asked them, "Which one do you want me to release to you?" They called for Barabbas. I could not believe my ears. Where were his followers? Where were his disciples? Where were all of the people who had cheered for him just days earlier? Had the Pharisees bribed the crowds? Had the people changed their minds? I gave the choice again. "Who do you want me to release to you?" Again, they responded, "Give us Barabbas." "What then shall I do with Jesus of Nazareth?" "Crucify him," they shouted. "Crucify him! Crucify him!" I had done all that I could. So I handed him over to be crucified. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that I still had the power to release him. You're thinking that I still had the power to save him. Maybe you're right. But it was my job to keep order. These were a testy people. They would riot at the drop of a pin. The life of one man no one cared enough about to speak up for was a small price to pay to keep the peace. If I had not satisfied the people and given them what they wanted and they rioted, how many of them do you think my soldiers would have had to kill to restore order? Did you ever think of that? Oh, I know he was innocent. I know the whole thing was a sham. I wanted nothing to do with it. I told you that at the beginning. But I had a job to do. Didn't I? Didn't I? I had a job to do. Besides, where were you when I offered to set him free? I never heard you shouting, "Give us Jesus."